Hello there, so this is a build update for my lightning caster, the Stormweaver, and I've migrated finally onto cast on shock with lightning conduit, which is so strong, and I'll get into why, but behind me is just some bottom gameplay just to have some eye candy. The whole point of this build is to stack up as much shock as possible, and we went for the double shock ascendancy, and then we have as much max shock nodes as possible, and that I found a way to boost up with jewels and also one of the skill gems for my arc to get 80 shock on an enemy, and that's twice I get 80, so that's 160 increased damage the enemy will take. And the annoying thing is that there's just been enough, so mapping is not as fast as it used to be, but bossing, this is mainly a boss killer. This is how I did my sanctum, this is how I got my ascendancy. It's so good at getting bosses, just massive hit. So if you don't know about lightning conduit, what it does is that it has a 100% more damage multiplier per 5 shock effect, and we have 280s, so that is a 160 shock effect. And then once the caster shock activates and lightning conduit hits the enemy, it will remove those shocks and then apply to the added damage 5 for every 5 effects, 100 more damage, so that's 160 divided by 5, which is 32 times 100, which is 3200 more damage on the lightning conduit. And I imagine also the shock is also there as well. If it doesn't, it's, I'm not losing that much damage anyway, but this is very strong getting bosses. And you can see here, it just absolutely nukes the bosses when ready. This particular gameplay, I don't have life tap on my arc, so I'm having a lot of issues with mana sustain. This is why I go for life tap normally. I find using flasks, life flasks is a lot better. It just heals you a lot more, which then you can use your spell a lot more. But if you have mind over matter, you can't get enough sustain. And on that last boss, where I was in the sanctum, I just ran out of mana and I couldn't actually kill him. This is some mapping gameplay. This is the pre-nerf gameplay, which it means the shocks are coming down all the time, which looks really cool. But on the trash mobs or the white mobs, arc is doing a fine job anyway. When it comes to the blue mobs and the gold ones, the rare ones, the magics and rares, it does come out a little bit more. And at the end of this video, I do have a boss with the latest patch on it, but yeah, so far this build has been great for me. It's not the best mapper. I think Spark's a lot better, and I want to transition into Spark, but that's going to take some ways of dealing with the high cast rate, because the high cast rate would drain my life a lot more, and then if I were to not use life, then I'll drain my mana a lot more, and that's my defense layer. Because currently, on this video, I have 2,500 mana plus 1,500 life plus 1,000 shield. But I have no mitigation, so I have no armor, I have no block, and I have no evasion. So I need to find a way to recuperate any damage I take. Energy shield takes too long, even there's lots of fast charging nodes, energy shield just takes too long. So that's why I went for mind over matter. The recovery is absolutely fine for taking hits, and then I just chug the flasks, and I keep gaining flasks from getting mobs, and I just chug the flasks and keep doing damage. Mana flasks hardly heal anything for my actual mana. It's talking about 500 maybe on a good flask, recovered over 4 seconds. I have 2,500 mana, that takes forever, so that's why the mana recovery for mana regeneration and arcane surge is really good, and that's also then leads into why I can't use a spell on that. I can use Mana Tempest, and as before in the last video, I can use arc whilst in Mana Tempest indefinitely, as it's a life spell, and I get the bonuses off Mana Tempest, so my orbs of storm are then also shooting and gaining the bonuses of that. But the one downside is that Mana Tempest, if I'm standing inside it and then my cast on shock gets activated, then I'm going to start draining my mana really quickly, so I have to jump out really quickly. How I achieved Archmage and also cast on shock is with a 60 spirit, body armor, which is quite expensive. I was lucky to find it and get one, but it's definitely worth it for just dealing with single target. I think it's doing some the highest damage I've ever seen in some of these videos without having to set up a bell and set up this and doing a lot of shotgunning or throwing a lot of gas grenades. I don't think the spell should be nerfed itself, because it requires as much, you have to get so many nodes to do it. At default your shock is 20, then you have to be the right ascendancy to then get double that, so that's 40. Then you need to get all the shock magnifiers, and then that if you get a 20% increased shock magnification that adds like, you know, four extra, but technically 8 if you have the arcane, you have the sorceress, Stormweaver node. Like this gameplay ends here. This is a really high level zone, by the way, with lots of crit. This is level 79 zone, so that's like, I think, tier 14 area. So, you know, I was doing a pretty good job there, but you know, the gameplay is not going to be the same. It's going to be a little bit slower now that Cast and Shock has been nerfed. But this is after the update. This is like a tier 12 zone, and you'll just see me just delete the boss here, wait for the shield to go down, dead. So that's what I'm doing.